And welcome on in to the latest edition of the Blue Horseshoe podcast. It is Ryan Hickey here with you solo. The Colts this week just wrapped up their first round of optional training activities. And unfortunately for George, his internet connection, his Wi-Fi, also took the optional route this week as well. So unfortunately, technical difficulties. George will not be with us here after the first day or the first week of OTAs, the first public day that the media was able to be at practice. But I still want to just join you guys here for a few minutes, get you set for the Memorial Day weekend, and you just kind of quickly rattle off your few thoughts from the first week of OTAs. All right, first thought is this. We talked about it on the last Blue Horseshoe Pod. If you missed it, Blue Horseshoe Pod on YouTube, Blue Horseshoe Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you check it out because we're kind of previewing OTAs. And one of the big topics we were talking about was what the split of reps was going to be for Anthony Richardson. And I thought right away he should be quarterback one. Maybe not named the starter now, but getting starters reps to see how he develops, see how he performs, and kind of almost give him the job and let him lose it rather than have him earn the job, because everything you hear when it comes to Anthony Richardson, what he needs most, reps. As we know, the starters get the most reps, which is why if I was Shane Steichen, even in OTAs, I would have been giving Anthony Richardson as many first-team reps as I possibly could. And while the numbers are not as high as I would like to see it, I think it's encouraging because from the first week of OTAs, Richardson and Minshew are splitting first-team reps, 50-50. In 7-on-7 drills, in 11-on-11 drills, it's Minshew, Richardson, same amount of reps starting with the ones. And why that's important, especially for Richardson, is because for me, when you look at a guy who is a project, right, who is a development, or who needs to develop, I should say, you want him working with the guys he's going to be playing with. And those guys he's going to be playing with sooner rather than later are the starters on the offensive line, a receiver, a tight end, and running back. And so I want him to get acclimated and build chemistry with those guys as much as he can instead of working primarily with the backups. So while, yes, he did not get the lion's share of reps like I was hoping for with the starters, it's still nice to see that at least right away, Shane Steichen from day one is giving Richardson an opportunity here to run with the ones and kind of almost in a way throw him into the deep end and say, sink or swim. Let's see what you got. I like that philosophy. Let's see what he can do. And I think that so far that is the right approach. And the good news too is with him starting 50-50 with Minshew, you got to think those reps only increase, right? That they rarely, unless he is just totally bottoms out, you don't think Richardson's reps are going to get cut as we go throughout the summer and into training camp, at least with the ones. So you think, okay, this is a good starting point going 50-50. And then hopefully from there, Richardson plays well enough that he earns those extra reps with the starters and continues to develop and continue to build his way into being the week one starter. A few of you commented on our last pod, and I appreciate you doing so, about because we were asking the question, should the Colts make Richardson the starter right now? And a lot of you said, no, let Minshew take the job now, ease Richardson into it. This is what I'll say. If Richardson right now, like this is the time where you could see if he could truly be the starter. I think the thing you got to realize is I don't think the Colts are going to just blindly throw Anthony Richardson to the Wolves if they don't think he can handle it. And they're not just going to say week one, okay, you're the guy, even though all of the offseason training and training camp, he's struggling with the ones. I think they're only going to play him if he's ready to play. And I think so far you're starting to see that the Colts, even though it's early, are starting to give him more and more responsibilities and more opportunities, which should show you, while yes, it's still very early and we're still in May here, a long way to go, that so far he is really taking every challenge in stride and so far rising / meeting up to the expectations of what the coaches have. And I really like the Shane Steichen quote that he said on Thursday after practice where he was talking about Richardson. He said, quote, "I'm really pleased where he's at mentally. He made some big plays today. He made some great throws, great decisions, some really next level stuff that I've seen over the last couple of days. So really pleased where he's at." End quote. You know what I love the most about that? It's not the next level stuff that I think a lot of people will latch onto and say, there's the alien showing off his incredible, physical tools. What I like the most is when Steichen's talking about his mental. He likes where he's at mentally. That is the area that is either going to determine whether Richardson could be a starter week 1 or not. We know he can do it physically. Sure, you got to work on consistency with accuracy and ball placement, but there's no doubt physically Richardson can do everything that you need a quarterback to do. The big question is, can he process the playbook? Can he understand protections? Can he read defenses, know where to go with the ball, and make good decisions? And so far, again, it's early. This is the first week of 11 on 11 full team exercises. So it's not, again, like we're crowning him to be the guy already, can't miss prospect. But even though it's a slow development so far, it's really nice to see Shane Steichen already recognizing Richardson, picking up what he's putting down, and being able to stay up to speed mentally. You also remember this too. Me and George especially like to joke about this a lot at Shane Steichen's expense a little bit, but he's not someone who gives many details. For example, Braden Smith didn't practice on Thursday. You know why Braden Smith didn't practice on Thursday? Direct quote from Shane Steichen. He's got a little thing on his leg. I mean, that could be a tick. That could be a cut. That could be a gash, like stitches. I have no idea. He doesn't give you any details, even why a small thing on his leg kept Braden Smith out of practice today. So he is not someone who gives anything away that he doesn't have to. But Shane Steichen's already starting to tell you at least, hey, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. He could have gave you a generic, hey, Richardson, long way to go. We'll see. Don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. Like, there's a lot of coach speak when it comes to, especially quarterbacks, how they're developing, how they're doing, because every fan base, but especially this fan base, wants to know how is the quarterback doing. And I think a lot of time the coach just wants to settle expectations and not have everyone get too crazy. So they don't really give you any details, especially positive details, because they don't want the fans taking it and running with it and then having these ridiculous expectations that are just not feasible or achievable. And so even though, again, Shane Steichen's not going over the top, giving you a little thing, talking about where he's at mentally and liking, where he's at from a mindset perspective, talking about making some great decisions, mentioning some next level stuff. Again, those are pretty big words from a guy in Shane Steichen who rarely gives you anything. So for the first week of optional training activities, I think so far it's going Colts fans as well as I think you could have asked for. And so far, so good in terms of seeing the progression early on with Anthony Richardson and at least giving him a chance early on to win the job going forward and put himself in the best position to be the week 1 starter. All right, so that is, at least on the Colts front, positive news about the quarterback. I have some negative news about the offensive line, and I give George a lot of credit. He talked about this probably, I think it was in our post-draft podcast, so maybe about a month ago at this point. He mentioned one of the biggest areas that he feels Chris Ballard failed this offseason was the fact that there is no depth on the offensive line. Yes, the Colts took a few guys in the draft as well, but when you look right now at the depth chart, it is concerning. And I thought that reared its ugly head today because, like I just mentioned before, Braden Smith missing practice. That meant rookie out of BYU, Blake Freeland, was the starting right tackle in 11 on 11 today. Now, again, I get it. It's May 25th. There's no reason to sound the alarm. But here's where my concern does come in, and I don't think I'm being overreactionary, and I don't think I'm being overly dramatic either. You have one injury to Braden Smith, and now all of a sudden you have no one else on the roster that is able and ready to step in other than a rookie late round pick. If you're the Colts right now, that's concerning. Because if you look at this construction of the offensive line with right now, if you project to at least this present day, think about what the O-line is going to look like with Ryman at left tackle, Nelson at left guard, Ryan Kelly at center, Will Fries at right guard, and then Braden Smith at right tackle. If Braden Smith, let's say, gets hurt week 1, has to miss even one game, and Freeland now is the guy that you plug in, you're going to be talking about then a rookie right tackle, a second-year guy at left tackle, and a second-year guy at right guard, who all three combine would have like 20 starts on the offensive line between them. So you're going to have possibly 3 players on the offensive line if there's one injury with no experience whatsoever for the most part. That's concerning. That is concerning, and that's why I thought George hit the nail right on the head in terms of Chris Ballard should have done so far this offseason a better job at getting competitive depth, especially at the tackle position, because the Colts, they are so thin. They have gotten burned in recent years, at left tackle especially, and they have not really done a good job of getting a starter, let alone quality depth to push the starter or be available for injury. Last year, we saw that depth was horrendous, terrible. And Chris Ballard, really outside of the draft, did not do a whole lot to build up the depth. And you saw it right away now on Thursday at OTAs, where Braden Smith has, according to Shane Steichen, a little thing on his leg. Doesn't seem too serious, but still, even if he gets hurt, rolls an ankle, or God forbid tears an ACL and is out for a while, you're one Braden Smith injury away from having 3 inexperienced linemen out of 5 protecting for your rookie quarterback. That's concerning. That is very, very concerning, because one of the areas you do need to beef up and improve in order to give Richardson the best opportunity to succeed is a protection in front of him, giving him time to throw. Richardson has good pocket presence, but if every down he's worried about having a bull rush and having 5 guys running free right at him every single play because no one can block, I don't care what quarterback you are, you're going to develop terrible habits, and you're going to be in a position where you are going to get crushed, have no success in offense. So that's an area where Chris Ballard, I hope, can look at now as you get over the summer and players, get cut from other teams and so on and so forth. We do see moves made, but that's definitely an area where the depth has to improve between now and training camp, and especially from now until week 1. Because you cannot be one injury away from having a majority of the line be inexperienced and youthful. That to me is very concerning. That's something to watch for too as you move on throughout the summer is how do the Colts try to add some veteran depth here, especially at tackle, to, if there is an injury, combat that as best they can. That is something to absolutely watch going forward here, and I really hope Chris Ballard is on the phone or making moves or looking at tape, because that is an area you desperately, desperately need to fix. And I thought Thursday with Braden Smith out there and having Freeland now at right tackle, that underscored that big time. Speaking of which, let's finish off with an injury. One of the guys we were looking forward to seeing, obviously outside of Anthony Richardson here at OTAs, was Shaq Leonard. Would he be able to be on the practice field? What would he be able to do if he's out on the practice field? Now, he was not he's not on the field. He was at practice, but not on the field doing any drill work. So he is still progressing. Shane Steichen said there's no timeline, but kind of likes the progress that he is making. I am not concerned about Shaq Leonard's injury yet. Again, it's still May. We still have 2 months until training camp. If he's not out there when training camp starts, that's when I'm hitting the panic button. That's when I'm, signaling and waving the white flag there and really start to panic about the health of Shaq Leonard. Again, you had a second surgery in November, so you could still rehab from it. And there's really no point if you're someone of Shaq Leonard's ilk, where you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of success already, to be pushing it on the field during these OTA workouts that are voluntary. So it's not, again, like you really need to be out there pushing it too much. But again, if we're talking about training camp and Shaq is still on the sideline, not practicing, that's where I do get very concerned. That's where I get concerned that I hope now we're not venturing down the same path we did last year. We getting told it's day to day and he'll be fine. And it's basically Shaq practice watch. And next thing you know, he doesn't make the regular season, then misses the first month. And then basically after a few snaps, misses the entire year. Like, these nerve injuries are tricky. And that's one of the reasons why right now I'm not panicking yet, is just because the fact that there's really no real timeline we can go by with previous injuries. Like with a torn ACL, we know, because so many players have suffered them, that, okay, it's about a 9 to 12 month injury based on, who the player is. But we, for the most part, have a general timetable. Oh, a pulled hammy or tweaked hammy. Okay, we generally know that could be just a few weeks. When we're talking about a nerve issue, starting at your back, impacting your ankle. I mean, I can't tell you I've heard of that injury too many times. And so I really can't tell you here that there's a normal recovery timeline that we can match up in with previous history compared to Shaq. So that's why I'm still not panicking yet. And again, he does not have to be on the field at this point in the offseason, but definitely come training camp, if he's not out there, that's when I really start sweating and really start to get nervous that we could be looking at maybe a second straight lost season for one of the best, if not the best linebacker right now in the game. So no Shaq Leonard at practice, not participating though. Few of the guys are all banged up. Jonathan Taylor, no surprise. Michael Pittman Jr., congratulations to you and your family. Had a child on Thursday. Very exciting for him. But the big one there in terms of not practicing is Shaq Leonard. Not panicking just yet. All right. It is Memorial Day weekend. So I want to keep this short. I want to kind of get you a few thoughts here before getting you off to your barbecue or the lake or the pool, or maybe you're traveling and going to the beach. Enjoy. Summer's finally here. I love this time of the year. Get outside, fire up the grill, and just really welcome in summer the best way you can. That way, by the way, enjoy that little race going on, Indy 500. That's going to be a total blast as well. So a great weekend lined up for you here. Also great to have some Colts football back to talk about as well. No better way to kind of get into a holiday weekend, into a summer weekend, than, of course, talking a little X's and O's with the Colts. If this is the first time you're listening, welcome. We appreciate you. Please come back. And the best way you can come back and hear and watch our content going forward is by one of two places. Either on YouTube, subscribe, Blue Horseshoe Pod, or check us out wherever you get your podcasts, the Blue Horseshoe Podcast. We're the bright blue logo. We got two feeds. We had an old feed that is with like a white background, and now we got a bright blue one, pops. The eyes draw to it. That is where every brand new episode does get uploaded to. So make sure you subscribe to that channel, the bright blue Horseshoe Pod logo. And come on, stick around and tell your friends about us as well. We'll be here all summer, leading you up into the 2023 Colts season. Have a great holiday weekend. We'll talk to you on Tuesday right here on the Blue Horseshoe Podcast.